everyone, welcome back to Too Much Bricks. This is Kyle, and today's a quick look at a recent mock that I have just made. This is a custom mech that I personally made completely from scratch, my very first one completely from scratch. For those of you who have been following my channel for a while might know that I personally really love building and customizing and just love mechs in general. I personally have customized quite a few myself, but I've never actually built one entirely from scratch. So this is what I came up with. I'm going to dive into a quick look at it. Please let me know what you think in the comment section down below, and consider subscribing. Without further ado, let's get into it.
So first I'm going to start off with the quick 360 for you. Now as you can see, the main center of them is kind of a box-like shape. I was going to go for something that a figure could actually fit inside, so I wasn't sure if I wanted this to actually be living, remote controlled, or like I said, powered by an actual guy or figure inside. I decided to go with powered by a remote, so you can have a minifigure with a little remote controlling this, kind of like, a robot. This big window in the middle is supposed to be the eye, kind of like one-eyed kind of cyclops type of a thing. Not like Mike Wazowski, but I have been told by a couple of my friends that it kind of does look like that. I am personally extremely proud and happy of how this came out. Again, this is completely from scratch, no tutorials, nothing. This is all from scratch from my imagination. So without further ado, let's get into some details. Starting off with this arm over here, you can see he's got some nice claws over there, and I've used a couple of big mech fingers with some blades clipped in there, or some samurai swords. Couldn't get the word there. He also got a nice little cannon on the top there, and all that assembly can be taken off, but I'll get more to that in a minute. Over here, he's got another cannon on top of his claw-like hand, and there's just a smaller little claws inside the smaller mech fingers, but a little custom cannon there. Moving up to the top, got some more weapons, another cannon on the top, and then a missile pod launcher, and this can all be taken off of the actual figure, which I'll show you in a minute. As far as posability goes, I'll get to that in depth a little bit later. It is okay. As you can see, I don't know if you've noticed, it's kind of starting to lean back the more that I rotate it on the turntable. It is on ball joints, so it is pretty sturdy for the most part. It won't exactly really fall down. I mean, if you really shake it, it will, but I tried to make it not too top heavy. There's a view of it from the bottom. Nothing too fancy, but zooming in closer to the actual eye portion of it, there's a closer look at the actual eye itself. Got a couple antennas there, a couple of buttons or lights, and then just a little code block over there, and then a couple of tiles up on the top there. You can't really see it too well, but it is a translucent blue window. Maybe you can kind of see it a little bit there, but it is embedded a little bit, so you got at least about an inch or more of brick coming out, so you could see that is not exactly flush with the box itself, but I do really kind of like the boxy design. Without further ado, let's get into what can be removed. So first of all, as I said, on this arm you can remove this little cannon, and I'll take a closer look at that later. You can also remove the claws over here on top of the regular hand, just like that. And these can be articulated however you would like. Lifting the arm up, as I said, we'll get to articulation in a minute. Moving over to this arm, you can see this cannon. This can also be removed. It's just on a jumper plate. And again, we'll take a better look at that in a minute. So that's all for that can be removed from the actual arms. Nothing was really designed to actually be removed from the legs, but we'll take a closer look when we get to articulation. This cannon on top can also be removed. Nothing too fancy there. And this missile pod as well, if we were to flip it around to the back, as you can see, it's just pegged into one of those 2x2s with the hole in it, as I like to call it. And then we can just pop that out. There we go, without this guy falling down. And with that removed, as I said, we can take a closer look at that later. This is what he looks like without any of his weapons. A little bit bare in my opinion, but it does still look pretty cool. And as I said, if he was stripped of all his weaponry, he could still use his giant claws to attack. But like I said, let's get into articulation now. For the actual arms, as I said, you can pivot it into at least a 90-degree angle there. And you do get some rotation where it connects into the actual box area over there. You got one singular tile right over there. I do have these little things. These can be removed just to add some detail, but by doing that, you get a little bit more posability. This can be rotated all around. Again, the arms were the first thing I started off with, so they definitely have at least, I would say, the most articulation out of the whole thing. But you got some wrist rotation there, and as I said, the fingers can be obviously articulated into any pose you would like. This arm is built identical, although it might look a little bit different. It is identical, as I said, so can be spun around. And it also does have this other kind of piston or axle, if you will, just for a little bit of detail, but that can be removed. And yeah, let me just spin this around like that. As I said, the fingers can be articulated into a fist or kind of a grabbing pose there. They can't be actually folded out just for the way they are clipped on. They're not on ball joints, but that's okay. Like I said, the wrist, got some wrist articulation there because that is on a ball joint. The legs are all made up of ball joints, so you get a lot of posability in the legs. And this tends to pop off a little bit, but as you can see, you look at the big boot. Snap that in there. It is nice and snug. And then I got a sticker on this other side of like a panel with wires. I thought that was cool to add. And the legs can't be like rotated. Nothing really moves on the main box portion of it except these little things here. These are just added for some detail, as well as this. Maybe you can see the eye a little bit better. Fold this back down. And yeah, that really completes it for articulation. As I said, not too crazy as far as articulation goes, but it is overall pretty sturdy. So that was definitely something I wanted to, make sure that it had. I didn't want it to be too frail or just for display. I wanted to pose it around and get into cool poses. So I'm very happy about that. And let's quickly move on to the weaponry. Here's the first thing we're going to take a look at, as I already showed you for quick little view, are the katanas that I have sticking out of the mech fingers there. Just a little cool kind of Wolverine kind of a design that I went with. But I kind of like that overlapping one of the hands. It's just a cool kind of weapon that I came up with. You can also fold it down into kind of like a fist, if you will. But I normally leave it up like this just because the way it overlaps the hand, you can't really fold them completely down. But that's the jumper plate on which the cannon will sit. But moving that off to the side, this is the cannon that sits on top of it. I have done a little tutorial on how to build this little minigun. I decided to include it in my mech mock. So you can definitely go check out that on my how to build playlists. But you just take this and I just stick it on the jumper plate on top, and then I just fold the antennas around the fingers as much as they can, and there you go. So that's one assembly. Next up is the cannon on top of the actual box itself. Nothing too fancy, doesn't fire, just made up of a couple cylinder pieces with held together with a lightsaber piece, just clipped onto one of the clip pieces, and it just rests, sits on the top. Nothing too fancy. I did put in a Technic pin, otherwise it would have looked like that, but I kind of like how it kind of shortens the actual hole. I like how that looks. So that's it for that. And now for the other cannon on the arm. This is my personal favorite of the weapons. I just love how complex it is. I can do a how to build on this if you would like. Leave that down in the comment section down below. Overall, as complex as it looks, it was actually pretty simple. You got a little minifigure hand there. This also could be held by a minifigure if you would like, but I just mount it on the arm there. And last but not least is my custom missile pod launcher there. I can just take this off so you can get a better look. I am still modifying this. I just don't like the big gap there and how much it sticks out, but like I said, it's still a work in progress. And I do have this little missile itself blasting out. That's just a regular telescope piece colored in black with a stud with a hole in it with a microphone shoved in there. It's a cool, neat little build there. And then you can just stick it in either one of the missile pods that you want. And that really completes it for all the weaponry that I personally made for my mock. I didn't want to like overcrowd it too much, and make it too distracting from the actual mech itself, but I think this is pretty much balances it out. and I'll go ahead and attach these back onto them to give you one last look. So there's one final look with all the components back on them attached. One thing I did forget to point out is the actual size compared to an actual minifigure. If you couldn't already tell the size of it in comparison to my hand, here it is to minifigure scale. Pretty big to a minifigure, but a relatively good size to, a regular human. And there you go. There's my first completely made from scratch mech. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I do hope you found this helpful. If you spotted any cool building techniques, let me know if you want to see an actual build tutorial on any of the weapons on this thing, or maybe even once I get used to the actual design of this mech, maybe a nice long build tutorial on this, maybe a live stream on how to build this. That would be pretty cool. I am hoping to be getting back to an actual live stream again soon, but I do have a couple things I want to talk about before we finish up this video, as well as my side series are going, such as my TMB gaming and TMB stop motion. For those of you who don't know what those are, TMB is the kind of abbreviation for Too Much Bricks, where I do gaming on Lego Legacies and a stop motion series, Bloody Pirates. I haven't done one of those in a long time, and I'm just going to be taking a little break from those side series. For those of you wondering when my next gaming video or stop motion video will be, I'm just taking a little break from both of those things. Not shutting those side series down completely, just in case I would like to bring those back someday. But for those of you wondering why I haven't made one of those videos in a while, that is why. I'm just going to be taking a little break from those. And aside from that, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and remember, you can never have too much bricks. And I'll see you in the next video. Keep building.